name of the title today, it was about different ingredients, some surprise ingredients. So I'm excited to share those with you. It's some things that you probably have on hand. And the other thing that I'm really excited about is a recipe that just uses some pantry ingredients. So right now, it's more important than ever to watch our food dollars. So if we could make something that was out of the ingredients from our pantry, that's very helpful. Plus, in addition to be budget friendly and pantry friendly, it's also Mediterranean diet inspired too. So also very anti-inflammatory, also high in those omega-6, omega-3 fatty acids, low in the omega-6. So anyhow, I will talk about the first thing that we're going to do today. The first one, and I don't even know if I introduced myself. Excuse me, I couldn't catch my breath. Again, I'm Laura Zervos, registered dietitian. I'm happy to be here for Lending Hearts today. And again, we're going to talk about a few things, some surprise ingredients. And so I will just get started on that. The first ingredient that we have is probably something that you have at home and you don't even, you look at it every day and you're like, ooh, the first thing is dandelions. And I actually have mine. Mine were not out of my yard. We don't treat our yard here at my house, but we do have a garden with an organic garden. And when we want to spray for bugs, we'll use solutions like vinegar, maybe Epsom salts, those things like that. So we don't have anything in our garden that would be, like poisonous. So anyhow, there's so much that could be used in the dandelion, and it is bitter. You can make a dandelion tea, and these are just a little bit droopy because I had them soaking. But we could use the root for tea. You could use the leaves for tea. You could even use the flowers for tea. So they're all going to give you a different type of bitterness level. So you could always cut that with a little bit of honey. But actually, that bitterness, they're high in vitamins A, C, and K. And we know that the K is the one and the A are both stored in the liver. So they're very good for detoxing. You see a lot of dandelion preparations, dandelion tea, dandelion supplements are always, you see them associated with the liver. So just a nice natural supplement. And I wouldn't, if you're taking some type of preparation, I don't think you could actually consume enough to actually to be harmful. So generally recognized as safe. So again, so here we're going to get started with the first thing is we're going to make a tea out of the root. The leaves we're going to boil. I do like sauteing them, and that's what we're going to finish up with, sauteing them. But the boiling them first really helps them get more tender. It's hard to get them nice and tender by just sauteing them. And when we do saute them, so I'm just going to adjust my camera so you can see what we're doing. Just put it on my cutting board, and I'll show you. So here's the actual root, and I've cleaned a few before class started. So you could see how all I did was I took a knife, and again, I scrubbed them pretty good, but just to get off any extra debris, that's all I did. And like I said, there's many ways that you can make the tea. We're going to make the root today. So I'm just going to cut this because we're going to use the leaves for something else. I'll just cut off that part. You could also, one way that I like to make my tea is to just use the leaves, and I would probably put them I could dry them, that's one option. And the other thing that you could do too before you make a tea, you could also roast these. Just changes the flavor profile a little bit. You don't have to, but you can. Just get this off of here. And I was just recently, I was at Whole Foods here in Pittsburgh, and they actually had the dandelions for sale there. And a whole bunch of them was $1.99. It was probably like what I had here, I would say probably about this big around for $1.99. And it was the root and everything. And they were organic. So you can buy them in the store just to be safe. And what I like to do also whether I'm making lettuce or anything out of the garden, any kind of leafy things, I usually, a salad spinner works great because it has that colander in there. And usually what I'll do is I'll rinse it 3 times until my water comes out clean. And that's what I've done here. So my water's clean now. I'm just going to go ahead and dump that out. I'm going to add my water, just a cup of water, maybe a little bit more, because I have a little bit of root here. And we'll get this started. I'm just going to bring that to a boil first, but I'm going to cut this. I'm not going to leave it in the big chunks. And it's actually this time of year in spring, these are the most tender. So it's pretty easy to cut. I would say it's like cutting a radish. So nice and tender. What I'm going to do with these is I have these all ready to go. I am going this one. I have just a little bit of something right here. Let me just get that off. A little bit more root here, but I don't think we're going to need that. I have all of this. Again, that's just right there. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in a pot, and I'm going to start them with cold water, and I'm just putting them in my pot here. And even this, the purple part is okay too. The purple part is usually where the actual, where that flower comes from, or the, what looks like a flower, the yellow part. And we're just going to bring those to a boil also. And I'm just going to cover that. We're just going to let them become a little bit tender, and then we'll saute them. Let me just put my dandelion root in a little cup until that comes to a boil. And then what I'm going to do is just strain that out of there. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to make is our pantry staple that I had mentioned, and it's a pasta puttanesca. And if you've done any research at all before about a puttanesca, it's just something that comes together very quickly. It's a very quick tomato sauce. So it's important that our ingredients are small. So I have, get everything over here. We'll do everything together, but let me get a fresh cutting board. Let me show you the ingredients first. I have some Kalamata olives. We have 3 garlic cloves, just a tablespoon of tomato paste, about a 1/4 cup of chopped onion. You could see how small I have it is. Basil for the end, a little bit of Parm cheese, some crushed red pepper, about a tablespoon. These are the capers that I used, about a tablespoon of drained capers, some olive oil, probably about a 1/4 cup, and I have our anchovies. I didn't open those yet. And I have on our recipe, all the recipes are going to be on the Lending Hearts site, or there will be a link for you. You could use around 28 ounces. I have a quart of the homemade crush, so we're going to use those today. So let me show you first how we're going to get started. Move our cutting board here. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our anchovies. And right here, and this is nice. I mean, this is really, they're very inexpensive. If you've ever purchased them from the grocery store, there's several in here, probably, gosh, about a dozen or more. And what I like to do is there's a couple methods. If you don't like touching them, you may want to consider just adding them right to the pan and smashing them down with the back of a spoon. You could do that. I always like to smash them on my cutting board just because it's very easy. So I would take out, and you'll notice that you didn't see any salt in my prepper in our class prep here, because these have some salt on them. And there's also salt on my capers. So just about 4. And any oil that drops off with them is fine. They don't have to be drained. But you'd be surprised. You would think that this gives it a fishy taste, but it doesn't. It just adds a real nice layer of flavor. Just checking on my water there. It just adds a nice flavor here. So the first thing, we just want to take the back of our knife, and we're just going to smash it. And this helps get the flavor out of it too. We don't want to, and if you see anchovy paste too, you could also use anchovy paste if you don't want to try fresh anchovies. Sometimes that might keep in the refrigerator longer for you if you don't typically use them. cutting board not cooperating here. And the other thing that you could do, but I don't want to do it, is you could salt them too. But I don't want to make our recipe any saltier than it is. The Kalamata olives also add a lot of salt. So that's all we're going to do, just smash them up real nicely there. Okay, so what we're going to do first, though, is I already have our pan back here. And let me just turn down our pasta. We could get that started. I just have a pound of whole grain pasta. Get that started. And we'll just put that timer on so we don't forget. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of olive oil and add it to our pan. About not much. Add that, and we're going to add, fortunately you can't see, let me just try to adjust it here. The first thing I'm going to do is add our onions. And we'll stir that around. And we want them, our onions, we don't want to caramelize them. We're not trying to brown them. We're just trying to make them soft. So we don't want to have them caramelized and brown and fried to nothing, just soft. Remember, this is a quick sauce. That's why we made them a little bit small. We're just going to do them first. And this is called, this part of the cooking of the recipe rather is to saute the aromatics. And the aromatics will be our onion, our garlic, and then we're going to add our anchovies, and then we're going to add our tomato and the rest of the ingredients to make a full sauce. So probably about 3 or 4 minutes total on here. And this is for 4. This serves 4. Give our pasta a stir. And I see that our water's coming to a boil. So here's what we want to do. We want to bring the water to a boil for the tea, and then we're going to shut it off because it doesn't need they don't need to boil. We're just going to steep these the roots. So we're going to shut it off after it comes to a boil, leave it in there for a good probably 5 minutes or so. So let's go ahead and continue with our onions. Again, we don't want them to brown, we just want them to be soft. All right, so let's see. Next, we're going to get our garlic. And the same thing with our garlic. What we're going to do is push our anchovies aside. For our garlic, I have there's a few ways to do it. I'm just going to turn this down so it doesn't catch while we're talking. There's a couple of things to do. So we have our 3 cloves of garlic here. And I like to use 3 nice large cloves. There's a few ways to do it. I don't know how you like to work with yours. There's a couple things. So the first one is you could just leave the garlic flat on your board and give it a hit like that with your knife, and it comes out real nicely, just like that. And then you could cut off, I typically cut that little piece off right there. Okay. And then the other thing, this is like a little handy tool you could get at most gourmet stores. If you're doing a lot of garlic, you may want to try that. You just slide it in there, and let me just get a clean, have our stuff for our tea over here. So the other thing that you could do is you just put it in there, and you could put in more than one actually. And you're just going to roll it back and forth. And it should come out right. So it just comes out nice and clean. So however you want to do it. This particular one is from one of those companies that you have to order from a representative. Nice to have on hand. You could let me know if you want that. And then what I was going to say, you just want to cut this off just like we did with the other one, and I'll cut that off too. Cut those little ends off just because they could be tough. Nobody wants to bite into that. And just give it a rough chop. And this is another one. If everything in here wasn't so salty, I would be doing it the way I typically chop my garlic is I will take the back of my knife, I will put some salt on this. If there's salt in the recipe, I will use that salt right on the garlic. Like right now, I would spread some on there, and then I take my knife and I just mash it down. It makes a nice little paste. You could do it a little bit without it, but when you use the salt, it really just makes it easier. Okay, so it's our garlic is plenty small. We're just going to add that to the pan as well. And it looks like the water's coming to a boil here. And we don't want to do, if you see the recipe online, it's just till it gets, it says till it's fragrant, and that's only a minute or two. Then we're going to add our anchovies. This over here and show you that. We have our onions and our garlic. I'm just going to scoop up those anchovies. We've got it all in there. And it already has a really good smell. I'm just going to add a little bit more olive oil to that. Because our next step, when we add the tomato paste, we're going to want to have a little bit of more oil in there too. About a minute on the with the anchovies. Other thing I'm going to do, our water is boiling. I'm just going to shut that off, and I'm going to add our dandelion roots. And that's perfect. We have about 3.5 minutes on our pasta. So probably another minute or so after that, and we'll check on our tea. We've got that shut off, and our other dandelion leaves are boiling, and those are probably going to go for about 20 minutes. This already has a really nice fragrance to it. And again, we don't want to burn anything, and nothing is burned, so it doesn't if you do that with the garlic, if you do the garlic too long, it gets a bitter taste to it. And then you'll see some recipes call for adding sugar to it, and that's just to counteract that. So I have about a tablespoon of tomato paste, and I'm going to add a little bit of oil to that. Just going to again work that in with all this other. And you could see even with me having it off of the stove, it's already getting that nice orange color. Okay, so next we're going to add our tomatoes. I should have my thing around here or can opener. We have so much going on today. Get that. And you hear the pop, so you know it's good. It smells delicious. And I have on this one, these are my own home, so at the top of it has it. These are just crushed. So I'm just going to pour off a little bit of the water just to get more of the pulp. And then if you find, like if you're using homemade too and you find it's too thin, you could always add more paste. And on the recipe, it says to carefully pour it in just because if you do have this on the stove, like we should, it'll sizzle up on you. So I'm just going to stir that all together. And we're going to add everything else now. We're going to add I'm going to probably, let's see, like we'll add our pepper. And I'm going to chop up our capers and slice our olives. So I'm just going to put that on there real low. Okay, that is our pasta. Let me check the pasta. Okay, and that seems nice and tender. Just put a little cut in there. And I always forget this point, and I luckily remembered now. We're going to take out some of the pasta water. I can't tell you how many times that the recipe calls to reserve the pasta water, and I don't. So let's just go ahead and do that now. I'm just going to take some out. And we probably only need about between a half and a quarter cup, but I'm going to, there you go, probably about half. Just so we have it. It just adds, if we need to thin our sauce at all, that's probably the best way to do it is with some pasta water. And you could see and I didn't add anything to this either. It just has a nice little color to it. And the starch in there will help thicken it up a little bit. I'm just put a little bit more time on the timer for our tea. So we have this. Okay, so what we wanted to do is I wanted to cut our olives a little bit and our capers so they weren't too big. And you could do whatever you prefer. I just want to cut them in half. Capers. That came from. Get my other cutting board here. And again, you could leave them whole. Sometimes the capers, they just give a little bit more flavor if they have a little bit, if they're opened. And it's sometimes people don't like to bite into a whole caper. This out of here. And we're just going to add this to here. And then while I'll stir that in and drain our pasta. And you could put a little oil on that if you like before everything else is done. And that was our timer. It's like all these timers are going off. That was for our tea. And I'm just gonna leave it go a little bit longer. See if we could. It has a really good smell to it already. So when you do, obviously, when you're doing the root, and it hasn't changed colors at all, but when you do the root, it is very earthy smelling. And you'll see, so I encourage you to try it at home. The leaves, the flowers, the root, they're all going to have a little bit different taste. It's going to be a little bit bitter, You might want to cut it with a little bit of honey and lemon. But again, so many health benefits. And if you have them available to you, or if you get them at the grocery store, if you're preparing the leaves, you may as well use the root too. So, and if you don't, if you're not interested, they also sell it already prepared. But I just think it's a nice way to go. All right, and then our leaves are still steaming here. So those are good. Let me just stir in our olives and we could start working on our next recipe. And really, this could probably cook for this whole dish is probably one of those 30-minute dinners. I would say another 20 minutes and this will be perfect. And it depends how you like to serve it. It depends if I'm serving this for my family or if I'm entertaining a group. What you can do is pour it all over the pasta or pour the pasta into the pot. If you do that, you're definitely going to need that half cup of pasta water, but that would make a nice presentation where we could put the pasta in a bowl, pour all the sauce over it. But sometimes it's nice to really incorporate it. And I use penne today. Puttanesca is typically over spaghetti. You could use any pasta you like, but when I like to buy the whole grain, and that one has a nice consistency to it, has a nice firmness to it. So I'm going to pour mine over. But anyhow, if you put that in there, everything gets kind of gets the flavor. The pasta takes the flavor a little bit better, especially when you're using something like a penne or something that has ridges in it and everything, where all that sauce just gets stuck in there. So that's a really nice thing to do. So let's get ready for our next recipe. And we're also right before, I just want to say one thing about basil. Puttanesca, typically parsley, and I have some parsley. We're going to add that here in a little bit. And also you could use basil, you could use oregano. I encourage you to use whatever you have fresh. So I just wanted to talk about one thing about basil, and then we're also going to chop some parsley. So let's get this turned over, and then we'll get on to our next recipe here. Right. So our parsley. And it's always a good idea to do your parsley ahead of time. So you don't want it to be wet. I washed it this morning before class. You don't need a whole lot for this recipe. Excuse me. If you find that it's still very wet, you should probably put it in some cheesecloth. You could also use a paper towel and I don't have too much in mine, I don't think. Yeah, it wasn't even just barely wet. We're just gonna give that a few chops. But I encourage you to use fresh if you have it. It's just nice for this type of sauce, for the quick sauce. And if you were using, say, for example, like some dried oregano, which would probably be the only thing I would try, or even if you did dry basil, I would probably add that to the sauce a little bit earlier, just so you can, that's all I did was just give that a little chop, and we'll add that in a little bit. It's going to set that here, and then we'll also add our basil. The basil I'm going to do a little bit differently. The basil I'm going to do what's called a chiffonade, which a chiffonade is just like like a ribbon cut. So take the stem off, and what you do is you just kind of fold it almost like a cigar, just wrap it up in there. And this just gives you a nice little ribbon cut. That's all the chiffonade is. So it's just a nice little ribbon. You don't want to chop it and bruise it. You just want to be delicate with it. So I'm going to put that right next to our parsley. And the one thing that I wanted to say about basil is if you do have a plant at home, and I just wanted to demonstrate, if you have some in your garden, if you don't want to, where's my scissors? I don't see my scissors. Okay. If you want to, what you don't want to do is just chop it. Like if you have a garden or you have a plant, you don't want to just chop it straight across, like give it a haircut. What you want to do is you come down here and you search for like where there's a next split in the leaves. So you could see there's some leaves right here coming out. So ideally you want to use scissors. And then you would go to, see if I have another right here. So you could see right here, there's this top, and then here's like right here, there's like another little intersection here where you see these two leaves and you see this stem coming out. Right there's where you want to get it. And this will ensure that your plant stays nice and bushy all summer long. So that's what you want to do. Don't just give it a haircut. Come down, find where the split is, find where that little Y is, and go for like right here. So you could just see there's that little Y right there, and just cut that off. It'll continue to stay nice and bushy all year. If you do it the other way, you're just going to get hard stems and you might get some side shoots out of it, but the leaves are always going to be small and it's not going to last as long for you. I always like to talk about that because it's just keeps your plant growing a lot longer and keeps it nice and fresh. Okay, and our puttanesca is very nice. We'll just leave that go a little bit. And the next thing we'll do is our cookies. So this one I'm most excited about. I just did one a few weeks ago for a plant-based class that I was teaching. It was like a chocolate chip kind of, I wouldn't call it a cookie, maybe a chocolate chip bite that was vegan. That was very nice, but I thought this one isn't 100% vegan. We do have some other things in there. So we'll just get started. What this recipe is actually adapted from the California Avocado Council. And if you haven't checked out any of the sites from like the Walnut Council, the Avocado Council, I encourage you to do that because they are the most knowledgeable on their products. They give you a lot of great information. They'll always, if you follow them on social media or anything, they'll always tell you when the peak of freshness is. Like they'll in May, they'll give a report and they'll say, okay, it's avocado time and it's, they're coming out, they're fresh now, they're a little bit late, they're a little bit early, whatever the case. It's just nice. It's just it's just kind of fun to be up to date on those things. But this recipe is taken from them and it's tried it before. It comes out very nicely. So let me show you the ingredients that we're going to use. And one thing that we have to do from the beginning, we are going to use an egg in this recipe, but I'm also going to use a chia egg just to demonstrate. So if you haven't used a chia egg, what I have right here is 3 tablespoons of chia seeds, and I have a 1/4 cup of water. So I'm just going to add those. There's the chia and just some water, and I'm just going to add it. And I'm going to stir it together while we do everything else, and then we're going to use it. But I just wanted to get that together first. So if you're vegan or if you have somebody that maybe you're entertaining and they're like, oh, well, somebody in our family is allergic to eggs, you could always make a chia egg. You could also make a flaxseed egg too. I didn't do that today. I do have some flaxseed in this recipe, but we're going to leave it alone. Just wanted to get it all stirred together. Try to get all the chia seeds off there. But the one thing about chia seeds, if you, when I said that everything was Mediterranean today because it's high in the omega-3 fatty acids, of course, our anchovies, sardines, mackerel, cod, tuna, all of those, even salmon, obviously, high in the omega-3 fatty acids. What's also high, if you're a vegetarian or you're not eating those things, the chia seed, the flax seed, and hemp seed. We're using all 3 of those today. Chia, flax, hemp, and all of those, a tablespoon has 2,500 milligrams of the omega-3 fatty acids. It is the plant source of them. So there's the EPA and DHA that come from the fish, the animal source, and then there's the ALA that comes from the plant. Plant is not as potent as the others, but it's still an excellent source of the omega-3 fatty acids, and it's still a great way to get them. So let me just show you what is in this recipe here. Okay, so we had the chia seeds. I have flaxseed right here. And you could use, there's ground flaxseed and there's just whole flaxseed. I always recommend you using ground. It's more absorbable and easy to digest. This is hemp seed. So we're going to, like I said, we have all of them. I have some sunflower seeds and chocolate chips. Those are the kind of for the crunch and the saltiness. And these are unsalted though. I have oats, brown sugar, some cinnamon, baking soda, salt, and a regular egg. And then instead of, and we are going to use a little bit of butter, but we also are going to use an avocado. So just something to look at there. So anyhow, and I brought our scale with us because it says to use half of an avocado or about 4 ounces. So I just want to make sure that we're using 4 ounces in our cookie. So I'm going to look at our tea real quickly too, just to see how that is. And it's gotten a little bit yellow, so that's nice, just a tiny bit. So what I'm going to, oh, and it smells delicious. Okay, so let me move our prep here. It smells really good, actually. Okay, so let me just slide this down and we'll get started on that. I don't want this to get bitter. It's already going to be a little bit better, but okay, so like I said, a lot of ways you could do this. And it didn't change the colors much at all, but it has a nice earthy smell. Oh, it's really good. It's very, very good. If you've ever had the sauteed dandelions, that's exactly what it tastes like. It's, in fact, this isn't that bitter. It does have a little bit of a bite, but it's very nice. So, but I don't think I need to add honey to it. I think it has a nice flavor just on its own. So let me set that aside and we'll get back to our cookies. Okay, so what we're going to do first is I will have, actually, I think I'll move this over so you can see. And we also have some vanilla too. And I have a little bit of flour here as well. You just get everything out of the way. And we'll bring our mixer over here. So the first thing what I did was I put our flour in a small bowl. So we're just going to separate, just like you were making regular cookies. We're going to take our flour. We're actually going to put the ground flax seeds in here too. And our baking soda. And our salt. And our cinnamon. And I'm going to give that a little stir. It's always a good idea to give it a little stir just in case you are, just in case you're pouring it into the mixing bowl and some of it flies out. Maybe that would be all of the baking soda or all of the salt. So just give it a little, you don't have to you could sift it together too. We sort of put this in a sifter, but you just need to get it a little incorporated. Okay. So we're going to set that aside. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our butter and our avocado together. We just set this over here. And again, I have a few avocados here because you never know with avocados. We could have one here, and I've washed this before class too. So we want to make sure that you always wash this because we don't want to think about where this came from many miles away. If it was California, Mexico, everybody that's touched it, we don't want to introduce any bacteria. Oh, sorry, any bacteria from the outside to the inside. And let's see what we got here. We have a beauty. And I'm just going to, since we want to have 4 ounces, I just want to make sure we have that here and tare it. Okay, take our seed out and we'll just get this out of here. So that was only 1.3. So I also have a jumbo avocado here too. Okay, 3.2. Today's my lucky day. They're all beautiful. About 4.6. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that off. Yeah. Okay, so there's our 4 ounces. That is not catching. Okay, so let me move this over so we could get the mixer here. But this was the jumbo avocado. This was really big. In comparison to the other one, it's almost twice. I never saw them in the store like that, jumbo. Um, they're usually the smaller kind. And that one, I say it was, not sure what store that was at. It was considerably more expensive, but I thought, okay, it's a nice one. All right. So I'm just going to pull my mixer over here, just this so you could see what I'm doing inside. And we're just going to use the mixing attachment. And we're going to add our avocado. And we're going to add our butter. And I've just been having, this is only a half cup of butter. I had this sitting out this morning, so it's nice and soft. Just like you were making regular cookies. We're going to make that creamy and then we'll add our other ingredients. I have a lot of clients. I didn't mention I'm also in private practice. And I have a lot of clients, or several rather, that have children that can't eat eggs. And what they do is they will make cookies with avocados and also the chia seed egg. And they have to be careful because the cookies are green. So my one client was like, my son thinks all cookies are green color. So that would be the only the only thing I see that would, maybe not make this recipe acceptable to somebody. Oh, the color might be a little bit off. But we get our sugar. We're just going to add our brown sugar. And that was 3/4 cups packed. We don't want to overmix this once we get our sugar in. Till it comes together, just like regular chocolate chip cookies. You don't want to overbeat them. Okay. All right. Then we're going to add our egg. And some vanilla. Teaspoon of vanilla. So all the wet ingredients. And again, pretty much like regular chocolate chip cookies at this point. Okay. And then we're going to stir in our, just real slowly. So I do half of this. Just till it comes together. So I'm going to do a little bit and then scrape down. You can see it's coming together just like a nice dough here. All right, and I have a little piece of avocado here. Other than that, it's nice. There's nothing on the bottom of the bowl. Down here. I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients by hand. Try to get out as much as we can. And I'll show you how it looks. Just a nice, it's all come together real nicely. I'm going to leave it on here just so it's holding it for me. And we're just going to stir in our oats. Hemp seeds. And we have our chia egg, which you could see is how it's like a big gel. I'll show that to you again so you could see how thick it is. How it stayed together. Right. I'm going to give that a little stir and then I'll add everything else. Sunflower seeds and our chocolate chips. And those are optional. You don't have to add chocolate chips. You don't have to add the sunflower seeds if you don't like them. It's the real recipe from the Avocado Council was it's called California Country Cooking. So it's like it says right on there, oh, we'd like to use everything that we have available to us in California. So that's why it's kind of like a kitchen sink kind of cookie. Okay, see how thick it is. All right, so I'm just going to move this aside and we will just like regular cookies, we'll just drop some off here. I put them I like to do them on parchment just because I think they'll come out nicely that way. And we'll just go real quickly here. Oh, so nutrition. These have a regular Toll House cookie has, I want to say 120, and like if you were to follow the recipe that's similar to the back of the chocolate chips, around 120, 130 calories. These are about 90. And I did the nutrition. It has about a third less fat and a third less sugar. And it has and carb. It's also lower in carb, and it has more, obviously, since we used the hemp seeds and the chia seeds and the flax seeds, it's high in the omega-3 fatty acids. So we'll get these in the oven and hopefully they'll be done before we're finished. And like regular cookies, probably about 7 minutes. So let me get them in there. They should be right before we're done. All right, I'll put those on at 7. I'm just going to check our dandelions. And what I'm going to do with those is just put those in a colander and we'll make the rest of this later. We just dump these out. And we could also, the other thing when we were talking about the tea, we could also reserve this liquid for tea as well. So this would just be from the leaf. So I will dump this out into something too, so we could see what that looks like. A little bit darker. A lot darker. Okay, now, if we want to, some people just like them boiled. And what I would do now is just probably try to drain them as best you can. I'm gonna leave them in the colander. I'll probably gently push down with the back of a spoon to get all the liquid out. And then I would drizzle some olive oil and some fresh squeezed lemon. Sometimes people like to saute these afterwards because you could do either. But like right now, they're prepped and ready to go. You could eat them as they are, or you could continue cooking, but you can't just saute. They have to be boiled first. I highly recommend you boil them first just to soften them because they are a little tough. But anyhow, even if I were to saute them, I would probably saute them. I would probably add a little bit of oil, just the crushed garlic like we did before, only just until it's fragrant. and then add the dandelions, and then add some olive oil. And some people like vinegar. I like the lemon just because it's add a little bit of brightness to it. And you've already got a little bit of bitter. And lemon's bitter as well, but it just complements each other. And I think that the olive oil makes it really nice too. So I'll try this once this cools down. Let's get on to our pasta dish. And let's see, we had our bowl here. Let me just grab our pasta bowl from the other side here. Okay. So we have, I think we'll add our pasta to this. So let me bring the pasta over here, and then we could put it into the bowl when we're done. Because then we could see what we're talking about as far as consistency. It smells delicious. It has a really great smell. But you can see it is a little bit thicker. Let's see here. Not too thick though. I don't know. Maybe we don't have to do anything. So anyhow, we'll add our parsley and our basil. And it could be a little on the thinner side because of my homemade tomatoes. It just might be was not as thick. And I made a whole pound of pasta. Might not need it. I might just use some of it here. Came together real nicely. And it smells amazing. And again, I would leave it up to the person whether they were to do um add salt. I wouldn't add any salt to it. I would let everybody salt their own because it is, like I said, between the capers and the Kalamata olives and the anchovies, we've got a lot of salt going on. So that's done. So that's going to be delicious. Um, let's move this. We could just should have put it in our pan first. Like that. Okay. Yeah. And I'm not going to add, like I said, maybe because I have my tomatoes, it's just not as thick, or it's a little bit thinner. Um, we can add a little pasta sauce, or pasta water, but I'm just gonna hold off on that. And let's look at our dandelions, and I'll push them out over here. So again, just like as if you were to cook spinach, same consistency. We had a nice big pile and it just kind of cooks down. So I'm just going to push this down a little bit just to get them out of there. I need liquid because you don't want to. And another thing that I like to do, if you've ever had the Greek spinach pie, a lot of times when you have some of the pies that Greek people make, they will use the dandelion greens or the combination of dandelion, spinach, and some other greens that they find. It just tastes a lot different. Still the same other recipe, but they will use these greens. So this would be that prep, and then just a rough chop. Like I said, you could eat these now the way they are, with just a little bit of lemon juice and olive oil. So let's just get those out. We won't saute them for now. The bowl's right behind us, just because we don't have a ton of time. Well, we have a couple minutes, so let's go ahead. We'll just saute them. So just pour a little bit of oil in here. I think we have all the liquid out. And don't be afraid to use the purple part or the stem. I mean, it's all edible. All right, I'm just gonna check on my cookies there. A little bit more time. They smell delicious. All right, so these, or maybe we'll saute that here. And we're just gonna stir them around. Again, you could add garlic, lemon juice. We'll put them in here when we're done, and we'll just add a little bit of lemon juice. A little bit of garlic here. Hear them. And we'll just give that a little stir around. And then we'll do our lemon. When it comes out, I wouldn't heat I would just do a little bit of olive oil and lemon when it comes out. I wouldn't put the lemon in here. And we're just gonna, enough so we get that, enough so we get the garlic just a little bit fragrant. We don't want it, remember the dandelions are already a little bit, have that bitter taste. We don't want to have it bitter the garlic either. So we saute those in oil just a little bit. And this is something too, you could always boil them ahead of time and then just give them a quick saute just to finish them. And you could see there's different textures here. We have the leaves, we have the stems. It's all delicious. And we'll just take our lemon. You could always add, like I said, more olive oil. I would wait to taste them. A little bit of kosher salt on top. That would be delicious. But let's just move that. But check on our cookies. Timer's going off, but I don't think they're quite done. Okay. It's 12:58. I'm going to just show you what they're looking like. And like I said, they are green. Obviously, we saw they were green with the before we started. But they are getting, if you just look, they're a little bit brown on the bottom. But they're also, I mean, they just feel like they might be a tiny bit wet. So I'm just going to stick them in there for another minute. But they look really good. And I think that they're going to taste really good with the crunch of the flax and the crunch of the if you haven't tried hemp seed in anything, it gives it a real nice crunch in it. So thank you for joining me today. It was great having you. I hope you learned some things about maybe some ingredients that you weren't familiar with and some ways that you can incorporate the Mediterranean eating pattern into your life. So thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great day. Nice to
You
see you.
too.